And good evening, everyone. I'm Bill Ritter of Eyewitness News in the Eyewitness Newsroom right now with a post-debate, a digital preview and analysis. I'm with Hank Scheinkoff, a political consultant and analyst who works mostly historically with Democratic candidates, and by mostly I mean exclusively with Democratic candidates, was once one of the top aides to Bill Clinton in terms of polling and consulting. Also with us at Hempstead, town of Hempstead, Nassau County, Hofstra University, where the debate was held between Governor Cuomo and Cynthia Nixon. Their first and only debate in the Democratic primary for governor is our political reporter, Dave Evans. And Dave, I want to start with you. If you didn't watch the debate, by the way, everyone, we're going to play several pieces of sound, and you can make your own opinion about what happened. And you'll be able to see this at any time on our Facebook page, ABC7NY, our website, our other social media sites, Twitter and Instagram, and on my Facebook page as well. And Dave Evans, I'm sure, will share it with his. So, Dave, you were there when it happened. What's your big takeaway of this, and how did each candidate do, I guess, use a scoreboard kind of analysis?
Well, Bill, I think the debate was much more feisty than what we were expecting. The first 20 minutes in this debate, it was dynamite. They talked over each other. They interrupted each other a lot. At times, it got a little bit nasty. I think if you had to declare winners and losers here, Governor Cuomo did a very good job. He was polished, confident, competent about the issues, explained his positions very well. But if you had to give the win in this debate, I would probably give it to Cynthia Nixon, not because she necessarily did a better job than Governor Cuomo, but simply by the fact that she was on this stage equal footing with a two-term incumbent, powerful governor. She needs to make up a lot of ground. If you look at the polls, she's 31 points behind. By being on stage one-on-one. He hasn't done one of these kind of debates one-on-one since 2002 when he first ran for governor in the primary against McCall, Carl McCall. You might remember that debate back in 2002. A few of you might remember. So he hasn't done it in a long, long time. So I would give the win to her simply by the fact that she was on that stage with him equal footing.
I never correct you because you're right 99.9% of the time, but we did find, after we had to talk about it earlier today in the newsroom, I found that he had on our stage at WABC a debate with Jeanine Pirro when he ran for Attorney General. It was a fiery debate here in 2006, but you're right. He has not done this for a long time. She had nothing to lose. He had a lot to lose, is basically what I hear you saying, David.
No,
exactly.
Look,
I think that go ahead.
Look, this is do or die for her, and she's dead. I mean, it's over. Andrew Cuomo looked like the governor. He had the best arguments. It was about his competence versus her ideas. She's the idealist. He portrayed himself as the competent manager of New York State government, New York State finances.
But she was, I think, to Dave's point, she stood on that stage and let Andrew Cuomo have it on several occasions.
There's no question she had to fight, but she had no choice. This is it. If she didn't score points here, she's not going to have the opportunity again.
Right. She had, if I can paraphrase both of you guys, and Dave, I want you to weigh in on this. If she had a goal, and that is to try to narrow this 31% gap. She would say that just like Alexandria Cortez in Queens, you know, a lot of people don't talk to pollsters. She has a lot of people out there, supporters, who aren't giving their information to pollsters, and there's a hidden kind of constituency she has. But she had a long way to go, and she didn't maybe get all the way there.
Well, I think her argument about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez defeating Joe Crowley in Queens in the primary earlier this summer, I don't know if that really is going to hold up in a statewide election. I think it's a very, very different group of people that are going to be going to the polls on Thursday, September 13th. So I don't know if that argument exactly holds water. She has a lot of heavy lifting that she has to do between now and Thursday, September 13th. She did a good job tonight, but I don't know if she did enough.
She did a good job because this is her only and last shot to be on the stage with the governor. It's a balance of the two of them. She lost the managerial argument. She won the great ideological argument, maybe. I'm the feisty fighter, and he knows how to run the state. Right. Well, he won the argument about what a governor's supposed to do. She may have won the argument of an emotional context about issues that, frankly, Governor Cuomo has taken on Donald Trump about, whether it be health care or gun control or a whole series of other things. I mean, this is not the great win for the great insurgent.
Right. Just Donald Trump, of course, was the other candidate on stage, it seemed like. I want to get both of you guys to get into the weeds a little bit. We picked out a couple of the highlights. Dave, you were there. If you find out any other highlights, let me know, and we can talk about those. But let's start with a couple of the highlights, and we want to show you the first of all, that I think made the biggest news, and it was when Andrew Cuomo said, hey, if I win for governor, that's the office I'm running for, and I have no other vision of another office, meaning president, in 2020. Let's take a listen.
I'm running for governor of New York. The only caveat is if God strikes me dead. Otherwise, I will serve 4 years as governor of New York.
Some drama there when the governor said the only caveat, and then you heard the moans and groans from the audience. David, what was your first thought, and how do you think he handled it, and more importantly, what do you think it means?
Well, I was stunned by what he said, because I think all of us have been operating under the premise these last couple of years that Governor Cuomo was indeed going to run for president, especially in 2020 now that President Trump is the president. And I think the fact that he has gone toe-to-toe with him for the last several months, I think we just kind of expected him to run for president in a couple of years. If he changes his mind after tonight, he is going to regret tonight a lot, because he was emphatic about the fact that he is not going to be running for president in 2020. It surprised a lot of us.
Yeah, I think it did. And in fact, when the moderator Maurice Dubois said to him, "Are you going to run?" and he said, "Yes, yes, yes, yes," I said to Hank, "Well, that's a pretty big opening." And then Maurice wisely, asked a follow-up question. I don't see any wiggle room there. I think
there's no wiggle room, and many political consultants are very disappointed this evening, okay? Because they want to have a campaign to work on for President of the United States.
Is there a way for him to get out of it if something happens?
Called national emergency. I've seen Donald Trump in action. I can't let this happen. The country is at risk. If Trump is impeached, it's chaotic. We have to do something. I'm going to run for president because the nation needs me, and it needs my practical ability to govern.
8 years from now, go ahead, David.
No, and remember, Bill, I mean, 2 years from now, that is a lifetime in politics. Sure. And so we've seen politicians change their minds a lot. I mean, he's perfectly fine to go ahead and change his mind in a couple of years and go ahead and run for president. But if he does, all of us are going to be replaying that soundbite from tonight again and again and again.
Yeah, good point.
That may in fact be the case, but remember who Andrew Cuomo is. He's always said he'll do well at the job he's presently doing and then worry about the next job. He wants to get reelected. That's his present job. He wants to run the government. That's his job. Who knows what the future holds? If the country needs him, well, he's a patriot, I guess.
I think that's the headline coming out of here, and certainly Dave's right. I think if he does change his mind, I know Dave Evans on Eyewitness News is going to play that soundbite a whole lot of times. David and Hank, I want to play you another soundbite because they did get into some real nitty-gritty stuff about the big controversies involving what the governor has to deal with and what New Yorkers have to deal with it. The MTA was part of it, and Cynthia Nixon, I think, had some pretty good jabs when she talked. It was good soundbite. She had clearly practiced, it seemed to me anyway, as an observer.
Yes.
She practiced the one-liners, and she got many of them out. I want you to listen to this.
He used the MTA like an ATM, and we see the result. He has had 7.5 years to avoid this very avoidable crisis in our New York City subway, and he has done next to nothing.
My opponent lives in the world of fiction. I live in the world of fact.
Since 1965.
Can you stop interrupting? Can you stop interrupting?
Can you stop lying?
Some of the biggest fireworks that Dave Evans was alluding to, I think we saw there. Hank, I'll start with you next this time because we started with Dave the last two times. And Dave, I'll have you follow up. What did you think of that? It was, in fact, talking something of substance to an issue that's important.
I think it was very important for her to say something of substance that showed she had a sense of what things cost, how they operate, how they function. That was her moment. After that, there was not much to say, and the MTA is a problem. Cuomo acknowledged that. He also acknowledged the amount of money required to deal with some of these problems and the age issues and infrastructure overall. It's a national problem. He didn't try to skirt away from it, but what else can he say? What else could she say? Frankly, that was her moment.
She did also Cuomo said, David, if I heard this right, if my notes are accurate, I think they are, he said, I am supporting canceling any kind of fare hike.
Well, he said that with some caveats. The thing that surprised me a little bit about this is that she used that line, when he said again and again, will you stop interrupting, will you stop interrupting? And she said, I will stop interrupting when you stop lying. I think it was an effective line the first time.
Once, yes, right.
The second time, the third time. I think we got to a point in the debate where she used that line again and again, and I think a lot of us were going, okay, now here's your chance. Where's the beef? start talking about your plan, and I didn't really sense that.
Calling Governor Cuomo a liar was not as effective as Governor Cuomo talking about management-related issues and taking on Trump. If Governor Cuomo was a liar and Trump is a bad guy coming from the governor's mouth won.
She also talked, the moderator, right off the bat, her first question, said, you know, look, you're an actress. You've never held political office before. Of course, before we get to the soundbite, neither did Donald Trump, neither did Rudy Giuliani before he was mayor, neither did Michael Bloomberg before he was mayor, neither did Ronald Reagan before he was governor. So it's been done before. But she was asked about this, and I want to play this clip and get your reaction to that too.
I'm not an Albany insider like Governor Cuomo, but I think that experience doesn't mean that much if you're not actually good at governing.
In terms of transparency, I think my opponent should be careful with that word. She released 5 years of corporate taxes, dumped them in 3 hours on a Friday with no notice. Only Donald Trump has done less transparency on his taxes than my opponent.
They both used, it seemed to me, Hank and David, they both used Donald Trump as a foil for a lot of the stuff. Cynthia Nixon said, you stand up to Donald Trump about as strongly as Trump stands up to Putin, and we don't need corrupt corporate Democrat in Albany. We already have a corrupt corporate Republican in Washington.
Problem is Cuomo's on the record too often taking on Trump, so it doesn't ring true.
Exactly.
That's the problem she has. So otherwise it'd be a great tactic, but it just doesn't ring true because the governor's protecting himself. Well,
you don't think that scored as part of your sort of fisticuffs, political fisticuffs, verbal, David, that you talked about earlier?
No, I mean, my takeaway from all of that is, how in the world can you say that Governor Cuomo is on the same side as President Trump? I mean, he has done nothing but just hammer Trump for the last several months. So I think that the takeaway from all of that is she can make these accusations that he's like Putin and he's not strong enough against Trump and he hasn't done enough, you know, to take him on. I think anyone who's turned the television on in the last 6 months would say, of course, that's not true. Of course he's gone after Trump again and again. So to me, that just, it seemed kind of a wash, the whole Trump issue, because I don't think that you can paint Cuomo as a Trump insider. I was a little bit surprised that she didn't even bring up the fact that he's received over the years $65,000 in contributions from Donald Trump, and she's demanded in the past for him to return that those campaign contributions, and he has refused to do so. I thought she would bring that up tonight, but she didn't.
And he, in fact, said, he made a very big point of that. I think you're right about the lines. They both used lines. She tried to pin him in like that, and it didn't really ring true, as you both said. But I do think, you know, they did talk about corruption, and she made a very big deal out of, you know, his father's former aide and his former aide, Joe Percoco, and his conviction.
It's a big issue that she could use. Does it have the same value? Andrew Cuomo has been, as Attorney General, he's the guy that took on the third-party marketers, and the Comptroller's Office just signed a law outlawing third-party marketing and with New York State pension funds. I mean, that's a hard one to make, and he's been very effective in separating himself from Percoco.
David, you covered this governor a lot, and you cover what's happened in Albany, and he went into some sort of deep explanation, saying we need more Democrats, and they've got to take action in Albany before we really end corruption. Did that ring true, or has he not fulfilled his original campaign promise of really cleaning up Albany?
Well, I think, you know, when he came back with the line saying, I prosecuted Alan Hevesy,
right,
who was the state controller, you might remember, who went to prison. He said, I prosecuted Pedro Espada when I was Attorney General, the state senator who said that he lived in the Bronx when he didn't live in the Bronx and did a lot of other illegal things and also went to prison. So I think it's hard to make the accusations against him that he is corrupt when he was the prosecutor on those two high-profile cases. As for his aide, Joe Percoco, who Mario Cuomo, when he was governor, said that he is like a third son in the family. He was very, very close to Andrew Cuomo, but I think Cuomo has shown many times in the last several months that he was upset about this. He said tonight that it was a very troubling thing that happened. He said smart people do stupid things, and he said that's what Joe Percoco did in this case, but in no way simply because Percoco was found guilty that you can say, well, then also Governor Cuomo is also somehow tainted because of that.
It's a tough stretch to say that the guy who's been banging Donald Trump's brains in is somehow corrupt. I mean, they don't fit together. The arguments just don't work. And if she had been able to get through the Trump argument or get through the corruption, then she would have been able to get through corruption.
And if
He can't do it.
anything, he dinged her about being a corporation
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
paying a 22% corporate income tax rate. Let me get the last sound I want to play for you guys was, is the most uncomfortable relationship among Democrats in the state of New York, the two most powerful Democrats, the mayor of New York and the governor of New York, not getting along. And neither one of these candidates has gotten an endorsement from Bill de Blasio. Let's take a listen on what exactly that was about in this debate.
Don't get me wrong.
Do you want his
I love Mayor de
endorsement?
Blasio. I'm sure he loves me in a strange sort of way. After 30 years, we have a dysfunctional relationship. He makes his own political decisions, not me.
And then Ms. Nixon did not get really an opportunity to say, well, I want his. She got an opportunity. She didn't say, I want his endorsement too. Does that mean anything at all?
Listen, if governors and mayors could shoot each other in the street, they would, and they've tried to on one
You've
occasion.
covered a lot of them.
And I've seen a lot. I've seen lots and lots of them. So that's not the issue. And she stayed away from it. You know why? Because the mayor's not terribly popular.
David, I think that that we love each other, but it's a dysfunctional relationship was a really good laugher, I think, and broke the tension of that. But what did you think of that whole exchange?
Well, what my takeaway from it is because right after Governor Cuomo said that, Cynthia Nixon was asked, do you want the mayor's endorsement also? And she basically said, no, I don't want it. She didn't say no. She said it doesn't really matter to her, which is basically what Governor Cuomo said. So, I mean, Bill de Blasio got a get out of jail card free tonight because he doesn't have to make an endorsement in this race now. He doesn't have to worry about, because he's friends with Cynthia Nixon. He's close to her. I think he would probably like to endorse Cynthia Nixon, but heck, if
he don't have
really
to
wants
pay.
his endorsement tonight, then
If
so
he would
what?
ever do
He
that,
doesn't have
that
to
would
do it.
be, what you don't want to have as the mayor of the city of New York is a raging governor who wants you dead, because they'll make it happen.
Exactly.
The power in
We've
New
had
York
that
State
before.
is with the governor, not the mayor.
Very briefly, 10 seconds each. Dave Evans out there at Hempstead at Hofstra University. Is it what you thought it would be? Did it exceed your expectations, or what it was about? Was it, or did it not exceed your expectations? Did it not meet up with your expectations?
I didn't think she was going to interrupt as much as she did, but I think, it was pretty. I would have reined them in if we were doing the debate. I would have probably tried to rein them in a little bit more, because it was just kind of a free for all there at some points, and we didn't really know what the question was at some point. But it was pretty much what I expected.
Okay. Well, you and I have done a lot of debates together, David, so I know you would have, and if you didn't, I would have, and vice versa. So, yeah, but you know what? The audience, having a live audience like that, and at one point Maurice Dubois had to say, hey, guys, be quiet out there. But I think that disrupted and did not help a little bit. Hank, what did you think?
Look, Insurgent does her best to try to get the incumbent off his perch, not successfully. Good debate, combative, to the point. Governor Cuomo looks like he's the manager. She looks like the insurgent. Does anybody pay attention? Some people do, but most don't.
She wanted to stand, he wanted to sit. They sat. She wanted it warmer at 76 degrees. He wanted it cooler. Apparently they were cool because he wasn't sweating. But it was, I think, at the least, an interesting debate, and certainly worthy of our 22-minute discussion. And I thank you both. Dave Evans, our political reporter out at Hofstra University in the Nassau County town of Hempstead, and Hank Scheinkoff here,
Thank you.
our frequent analyst on Up Close, and I appreciate you being here tonight. A big reminder before we say goodbye. Please, please, please vote on September 13th. We have a graphic right there. You got to vote on September 13th. It's a Thursday because the Tuesday is the Jewish holidays and it's 9/11 and blah, blah, blah. And so they moved this in a very unusual way to Thursday, September 13th. That's the primary, the general election in November. We thank you for being part of this special digital analysis of the one and only Democratic debate for governor of 2008 in the state of New York. I thank you for joining us. For my colleagues, Hank Scheinkoff and David Evans, for all of us here at Eyewitness News, I'm Bill Ritter. We'll see you later.